Hey, good morning everyone. Welcome to this new stream. And the topic for today is spaced budgeting. It is an approach for Polkadot OpenGov, the governance system of Polkadot, for a smarter way to use the treasury, to deploy the treasury, and generally a more strategic and I would say more effective way of doing OpenGov. I'm doing this live stream today because I'm hoping that some of you that are watching will participate in the chat. I may be getting a little bit of feedback, so we can make it a little bit interactive. Hi, Gerard. And yeah, I will try to have an eye on the chat, give you a little bit of a response. If you have certain questions, just shoot them out. We can, since it's a live stream, we can develop this conversation in any direction. And whatever you feel like you have any questions, just put them out there and we go into this. Okay, so this thing has two parts. First of all, it is a reflection on how OpenGov has been working so far, how treasury management has been working so far. And it is intended to highlight some of the good things, but also some of the bad things. Because if we want to do better governance, we need to maintain the good things and fix the bad things. And we need to get an understanding of what is it that we actually want to improve. And I strongly believe we can deconstruct things, we can look at the underlying values, and then we can construct better things. Typically, it's not best to just go into another extreme, but to basically construct our solutions. Okay, let's just get into it. And as you can see here already, and I make my own picture a little bit smaller here, we want to talk about the role of ecosystem success. So a governance system like OpenGov for Polkadot has a certain purpose. And first of all, the purpose is to help the protocol self-regulate. And depending on what the protocol does, this can take different directions. Now, Polkadot is a very far and wide-reaching protocol. It intends to be a fully fledged ecosystem supporting multiple chains, supporting any kind of, not even just blockchain, but any kind of distributed ledger. So it is supporting the whole ecosystem. And so I think as a fair framing, as an initial framing, it's good to think about ecosystem success. The Polkadot DAO OpenGov does not only manage itself as a protocol, but it wants to be the host for a range of protocols, applications, businesses, communities, and so on. So we frame this as a conversation about ecosystem success. And now if we look at governance can have two parts. We can view this as two parts. The first one is legislation, so making rules, deciding what should be done, and execution, how to implement the decisions, how to operationalize this. And so in this conversation today, we're focusing on the execution part more, because the execution then informs what we need to do on the legislation side and how we need to construct it. Hi, Eric. Thank you for joining. Feel free to ask any questions in chat. I will be looking from time to time. Okay, so we're starting with this statement here with the treasury is meant to be spent, which has been around in the last few days, and I agree with this. If there is money, it is meant to be spent, but it is meant to be spent smartly. And let's look a little bit about what has been happening in the past. So we are going to briefly talk about the good parts in Polkadot, because I think I'm going to become very critical now in the next few minutes. And so it's important to understand that there is good things in Polkadot. I'm not only critical, and I think it's important to acknowledge the good parts that are there so that we can understand there is good parts, we shouldn't destroy them, and we should just improve what is bad. So there is already structure. I was drawing up these verticals here. These are basically different, functions or departments or areas of work that I see in OpenGov, which is marketing, its development, how we are treating talent, how we're doing business development, how we're operating the network, how we're doing research, and OpenGov. Okay, hi Gary. Yeah, so far it's the three of us. It's a conversation for you. The idea is also to ask any questions that you want so that we can basically, if you're wondering about something, it's also important for me to understand what is basically makes sense for you. Good. So the structure that we have in OpenGov is that there's actually teams here. These are the things in blue. So in every area of work, there is teams working. I also didn't draw out everything. I just wanted to show there is structure, there is bounties, there is different teams working in this field. Okay, now let's come to the critical part, the stuff that is going bad. And so right now, I see a lot of people being angry, being confused, and being frustrated. And I think that in the current situation, the reason for that is that we created a lot of transparency about the stuff that is going bad. So one good thing about Web3 ecosystems, open source in general, is that there is transparency and you can look at things. And so quite often when transparency is created, people get frightened because they see the bad stuff that is going on. But that doesn't mean that it's exclusive to that ecosystem. It's rather, it's visible in that ecosystem. You can assume that in many other ecosystems, the same stuff is happening, but maybe it's less visible if it is happening behind closed doors. But let's look a little bit about the stuff that is going bad. So people are angry about, I would say, let's say, mismanagement or the corruption of certain things. So, for example, the Treasury has been paying for the setting up of a foundation in Switzerland for the debt token. And then basically OpenGov has no control over this foundation, and this foundation is doing its own thing now. And OpenGov invested a few $100,000, and this money is now gone, and the foundation is doing what it wants. Can make you super angry. Polkadot has invested in a lot of influencers and basically spent money on them, and I'm one of the people that think this is something that does not make sense. There are certain forms of advertising that I think are good, and then I think there's certain forms of advertising that are bad. Investing in KOLs, I think, is very bad, or it's just stupid. You know, this is what pump and dumps do. There was an unprofessional setup of how bounties and collectors were set up, and we see a lot of consequences, and we have to do a lot of cleanup work. And it's basically, there was no discussion initially, it was just set up, and then once it is set up, we have a lot of discussion and cleanup work to do. Instead of just setting it up properly and then executing it, it's just an order of discussion. Sometimes people are getting insane salaries, and there's intransparent channels. We have event production for example, the flagship events where there's a subsidy per participant, essentially how much do you spend on the event, and you can calculate how much do you spend per participant by just dividing the total costs by the number of participants. So the event subsidy for some of these events is above $1,000 per participant, which sounds insane to me. And then there is like side events, parties that cost $200,000, and I've been at these parties. It's like regular parties at clubs, and I don't understand how this can be worth $200,000, right? And so a lot of people are critical about this and get really angry, which I totally understand. Most of these things also make me very angry. And then people are confused. They don't understand the structure of OpenGov, or they don't understand how in the head ambassador the ambassador program sets up, and then one of the head ambassadors gets elected, and this person doesn't even exist. It's a fake identity. Yeah, and it's really insane, like you say, Eric. So taking all of this together, if you are angry too long, if you're confused too long, after some time you get frustrated. And I think it's understandable to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but what you need to do is to get better. And right now people are frustrated because we're not getting better faster or fast enough. And so the conclusion of all of that is that quite a lot of people are unbonding right now. And I even got a message from a friend that I typically don't talk about Polkadot with, and he said, how can I unstake my dot? So drawing this a little bit further, people might forgive unprofessionalism if you intend to become better and if you're actually becoming better. But what they don't forgive is corruption. And we see some of those things. We see that certain actors are blackmailing people, threatening people, extorting people for votes and for quid pro quo voting. We have lots of instances of this, lots of people reporting this. Typically they don't want their identity to be disclosed, and so we can assume these are only the people that are reporting it. So the people that are actually giving into this, they won't be reporting this. So we can assume that this is a serious problem. certain people abusing OpenGov for their personal vendettas, abusing OpenGov to say some things should be excluded, for example, from marketing. And I think what this does is it sends signals to protocols to just not work on Polkadot. If you can be publicly like put up like this in a governance system, it's just a bad taste. Placing friends as bounty curators, paying friends for bounties, and so on. And so if people get the feeling that the treasury is paying for corruption, it creates a bad reputation for Polkadot, right? So all the marketing in the world is not worth anything and is not effective if at the same time you're making so much negative noise that it creates a better reputation for Polkadot. And so this creates market uncertainty, and so this is the situation we have right now. And yeah, we started this campaign, we said anti-grift, and we've been thinking a lot about this. And so the rest of the presentation is going to turn in a much more positive direction, thankfully. But let's count up all the problems that we have. We have a system that is in parts ineffective, is inefficient, and it creates uncertainty. And so overall, if you take all of these things together, it makes the ecosystem weaker, which we do not want. We want the opposite. We want to have an ecosystem that makes it stronger. So it's not only about, I don't know, like funding specific initiatives and like having a good A&A voting system, but it's also how you do OpenGov that signals to people if this is long-term an ecosystem that you can trust in, where you can have confidence that is actually becoming stronger. So the way how we do OpenGov is at least as important as what we do with OpenGov. Yeah. So how did we react? And also I have to say how I also tried to react is I tried to play along with this and basically said, okay, this is part of the whole thing. I need to do my best thing. I need to have a positive impact. But if you look at the whole situation that we just described, the current way of doing OpenGov is no longer defensible. It's created too much uncertainty. It's created too much people are turning away. And there's a lot of good people that have been turning away, that become frustrated, that are saying goodbye, and this needs to stop, right? One of the aspects is we're wasting money. One of the aspects is we're wasting our best people to do cleanup work. But I think the most important aspect is that from a business perspective, we are wasting time to market, because Web3 ecosystems are competing for time to market and how fast they can come to the market. AKB, hey, Hope, welcome to the conversation. So, as an example for time to market, I'm comparing Polkadot here and Avalanche. And I'm comparing market cap dominance. So this is, in my opinion, a pretty fair metric to compare things. It's not price or something, it's like market cap and the representation in the overall crypto space. So Polkadot has been, and this is a 1-year comparison window, which is roughly the time spent that Polkadot has been active. OpenGov has been active. Going down from 0.6% market dominance to today like 0.3%, 0.35% market dominance, so going half. At the same time, if you compare Avalanche, it's basically staying flat if you look at the beginning at the end, at 0.4% market dominance. So Avalanche 1 year ago was in a worse position from the market dominance perspective, and has surpassed Polkadot from market dominance. And so I mean, there's lots of factors. How is business development going on? How is development going on? How are different projects maturing and so on? But you would assume that if we had good governance, we would be in a strong position right now, because OpenGov is also the way how Polkadot is communicating with the market about what it does. And this does not paint a good picture. So something is clearly going wrong, and we need to change something. It's really critical. So there is hope on the horizon. Despite all of the things that I've been just describing, at the same time, good people are working in the ecosystem. Lots of good people that I know, that I've been meeting at conferences, that I'm meeting in chat every day. And we can see this in a few examples. For example, Events bounty has been reformed, games bounty has been reformed. Currently, people are resisting the marketing bounty refill, and I suspect that we will also see a reform of the marketing bounty. So OpenGov is at work. Web3 principles, I would say, are at work and are showing that we can do better, we can improve the individual systems, which is a good sign. But what I'm also saying is, reflecting a little bit on the conversation in chat, and this is also what started like putting me down this rabbit hole of deconstructing all of this here. We were releasing this transparency report a little more than 1 month ago, and it got a lot of people angry. It got Polkadot also in like mass media, crypto mass media, which was a good thing. But it also started this trail of being frustrated with many things, and it might also have contributed to the marketing bounty refill rejection for now. But you can see right now very negative dynamic on Twitter. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, we contributed to bring people into the critical zone of critically reflecting stuff. But what we now also need to do is to give people hope and confidence that things can become better. And I strongly believe that we can make things better. What we need for that is a better approach. So we need to have a system of making things better and not just individually working and trying hard. We need to have a master plan and a strategy, right? So this is the rabbit hole we're going down with here, right? So the intention is also to give you a plan and a concept to understand, so that you understand, okay, we have this idea and this concept, and if we follow this, we can make things better. Because this gives you hope, this gives you confidence, and it lets you look into the future. If it not works for Polkadot, it works for something else, and you have learned something. But I believe we can apply this to Polkadot in a very good way. So let's look at this. Individual reforms are not enough. We need a big approach, and so we need to ask the question: how do we mount a force that can out-compete the corruption? Because one thing that we can observe in Polkadot is that many things can happen in OpenGov. Many things can happen at the same time, and there can be bad stuff and good stuff happening at the same time. So like having decentralized management is also a good thing because it isolates problems from each other. But what we need to create is a system that is so strong that it has a much stronger force than whatever is holding us back. So corruption and unprofessionalism are forces that we need to fight against, and we need to come up with stronger forces. So this is the whole idea. So we need a paradigm change. We need to increase market confidence. We need to do things that align with the long-term vision of Polkadot, and we need to better integrate the work that is happening. And we see this happening right now in many different places. So people, the constructive people, have become really motivated in sharing ideas of how we can do things better. So people posting different frameworks of how we should do OpenGov, people posting constitutions of how the Polkadot constitution should look like, proposing better management practices, or just individually improving things at certain places. And the contribution I want to make at this place here is based budgeting. Based budgeting is a bottom-up approach for strategic, effective, and decentralized budgeting. So we have a little bit of an acronym here. And I chose this word of based budgeting because a few things in crypto, more in the Ethereum world, are sometimes called based. So I was thinking, I want to communicate the basic idea even in the framing of the concept, right? And based is something that is unapologetic, that is just forceful and directed. And so based budgeting is something that looks into the future, that says we have a plan, and we're following this plan. So if we look at the basic parameters again, to roll up the previous discussion that we had, our goal is ecosystem success. We want to move away from weakness, and we want to move towards strength, right? Big fancy words. Now, how can we actually make this happen? How can we deconstruct this? Right. So I will get into this, Gary, in a few minutes. I picked out, to start our conversation here, 3 values that I think are relevant, and I'm picking these 3 values because they are coming up often in the conversation. And when I listen to conversations and people mention certain words very often when they are comparing, when they are coming up with solutions, when they're describing a problem, these values indicate to you what is important to people. And so, sort of abstract words, we discuss effectiveness, we discuss efficiency, and I added this one. It's not that people are consciously reflecting this, but I'm seeing this in how the market behaves right now. It's about confidence. So effectiveness and efficiency, what does it mean? Effectiveness means doing the right things. Efficiency means doing the things right. So effectiveness is if I'm doing the things that are good for me. For example, I don't know, do sports, eat healthy, have a good work-life balance, and so on, right? So these are things that are effective, they are good for me. And then doing things efficient. So how do I do my sport? Do I have fixed times? What kind of training do I do? Does it give me the goals that I'm working towards? So if I want to optimize for strength, then I need to have other training, right? So effectiveness, efficiency. When it comes to Web3 ecosystem success, effectiveness means doing the thing. Now let's define ecosystem success. What does it mean? Ecosystem success is if we do all the things in the ecosystem that we need to have a Web3 ecosystem, an ecosystem that has an actual impact on the real world, an impact on bringing good stuff to people, bringing them apps, giving them back control, giving them more sovereignty, giving them the tools and the abilities to do things on their own. So effectiveness means doing all the right things, right? And then efficiency means doing them in a way that we don't waste time, we don't waste resources, we don't waste people or whatever, right? And confidence is a value where if we are doing the right things and if people see this, they can develop confidence in us. The market can develop confidence. And what we need right now, while we are looking at charts and whatever, is how confident is the market that Polkadot can achieve the things that it promises. So confidence is a thing that we need. And if we translate this now, if we operational, sound is great. Okay, let me make the sound, can I make the sound a little bit stronger for you? I cannot, maybe. Okay, I think I made the sound a little bit stronger. Let me know if that works for you in the chat. Whenever you feel like it, you can also ask questions, but I feel like chat is going nicely today. So we want effectiveness, efficiency, and confidence. Effectiveness means setting out the right goals and objectives, and this is something OpenGov can do. OpenGov, for example, on the Wish for Change track, can agree it's super important for us that we get good marketing done, if you want that we set up the right tools to get Plaza going, for example, that we invest in, I don't know, more light clients or bridges or whatever, right? You can set out goals and objectives. You can say we want to improve our business development, our marketing, we want to improve developer experience and user experience. And you say this is the package, these are the most important things we should care about in the next year. And of course you can update this, but basically how you're setting goals and objectives for your own life. Every company is setting goals and objectives, and also a Web3 ecosystem needs to set goals and objectives. If you have more centralized ecosystems, maybe the foundations are setting the goals and objectives. Of course they do this. They say, we want to achieve these things in the next year. We want to improve our bridges, we want to improve wallet experience, whatever. Now, if we're moving more into the decentralized space, if we're moving into on-chain governance, now on-chain governance has the job to actually set these goals and objectives, because Polkadot is still an organization. It's not a company. It's not an NGO. Maybe it is an NGO, I don't know. It is an organization, and so it needs to have goals and objectives, because every living being needs to have goals and objectives. Yeah. So one question is, community can't have confidence if the voting method doesn't change. We will go into the voting here, and maybe this can convince you a little bit. Okay, efficiency means professional execution. Have professionals, have them work in good teams, then this works out. Okay, now let's go into this confidence part. Right now, when we look at how is voting happening in OpenGov, you typically see like maybe 1 or 2 whales voting, very few, and it's typically the same whales, right? And not everyone agrees with, like a lot of people don't agree with how this is turning out. Now you can say the voting mechanism needs to change, but you could also say maybe the whales that care a lot about Polkadot and that might be more aligned with the way of how you think things should be done. Maybe they're not voting right now. So, for example, you can imagine that people that have been participants of Polkadot very early, that maybe invested in Polkadot very early, or maybe have been part of teams or something, got tokens. But to make sure that Polkadot is not deemed a security or under centralized control or something, they voluntarily decide to not participate in voting. So the people that would actually be aligned with interests have other reasons why they're not participating in voting. Now, imagine that we could get people that align with these opinions that I'm laying out here. If we could get them to vote in strong support, and suddenly we don't have 30 million votes, but maybe 100 million votes or 300 million votes, turning out to express certain interests of how they would like to see the network develop. So if we can get whales to vote with confidence in a confidence-based voting system, suddenly we could signal to the whole market that, hey, the people that have a stake and an interest in Polkadot actually have the confidence to put Polkadot and the DAO and OpenGov in a certain direction, right? So the system that I'm proposing here assumes that we get voter support, because if the voting system works like it does right now, with maybe 1 or 2 voters deciding on everything and not taking the time and consideration to discuss issues, to maybe develop sophisticated plans, but just shoot out ideas, this cannot work in the long term. This is not how a professional organization is run. You can run a small company, like I run a small company. I can make things out of my gut feeling every day because sort of I have my rough plan. I could not imagine that a guy like me runs a company of 1,000 people or 10,000 people or 100,000 people, because I don't have that management skills, right? So you need a system of sophisticated decision making. Good. So let's assume these values and let's see how can we construct an actual system out of it. And I'm going to read up on chat for a second. Yeah, a little bit of inflation discussion. I won't touch inflation today. Today it's about how do we get proper execution and how do we get voters to support this system. Yeah, lack of professionalism is a topic that we will touch on. Okay, so let's get to the system. Let's get to what is based budgeting and how does it work. There is typically a big discussion when you talk about setting up an organization in a decentralized environment. And that is that Bitcoin was started from this insight that if you have centralized institution, if you have centralized control, things can go very bad. And so we have a natural, we find centralized systems suspicious, I think for a very good reason. We don't want to have systems that are directed top down from a few people, and the system can get corrupted. So we have this tendency to build everything from the bottom up, right? We build our tools, we build our teams, and this is how a lot of OpenGov also works right now. Basically, people have an idea and then they do something, and then it turns out either good or it turns out bad. And this is a good approach. It's very organic. It creates resilient systems because either they die off or they survive. And if they survive, then they have something good about them. And so you have this evolutionary aspect of things coming up from the bottom up. And so there, you now have this natural problem of if things are coming from the bottom up. Typically, we would assume a strategy is a top-down perspective of saying these are how the major components of the system are arranged, and this is how things should work. Now, this could be a good plan, or this could be a bad plan. We cannot know in advance. We might have good guesses and estimates, but we don't know in advance. So you come up with a good strategy or better strategy, you don't know. So if it comes to betting your ecosystem on a certain strategy, risky, right? This is why we have this distrust of and don't really understand how can we combine top-down and bottom-up systems. Now, I'm going to state here, I think it's not an either or, it can be a smart combination of the two. And the way you can combine them is that you don't need to have a single person or even a single system. The nice thing about OpenGov is that you can have multiple systems in parallel. For example, we could set up a certain strategy and a certain structure, and we could get funding for that, and that in theory could operate in parallel to other systems operating at the same time, right? So just because I say we should be strategic doesn't mean everyone has to follow the strategy that we are proposing, right? I'm rather thinking if we are proposing a good strategy and people will agree, then they will start flocking to it. They will see the success of the system and then they can flock to it. Or if it is bad strategy, it just fails, right? So we can have strategies that come from the bottom up, and if they're successful strategies, they will evolutionarily show that they can survive. So we can have bottom up and we can have strategy. And so what we can achieve with strategy is that strategy sets out goals and objectives. And then the bottom-up mechanism can ensure that things are efficient and resilient. So what we mean by bottom-up is that there are individual teams, they have skin in the game, they have something to lose, so they have an interest to win, and they tend to be lean and efficient. And the way we can combine these two approaches is by setting up a modular system. So a system where individual things can be combined, they can be exchanged, they can be updated, and they have some sort of isolation where you give them certain tasks, certain job, and it only fulfills that certain task. And it's not that it necessarily has all the components below it integrated. So for example, we don't need one marketing department that does everything, because big departments can tend to become bureaucracies, they tend to bloat, they tend to become self-fulfilling, self-serving, and corruptible. And we don't want corruptible systems. So keeping things modular can also ensure isolation and can also ensure that we build something from the bottom up, but it fulfills a larger strategy. And I think I'm skipping my slides now. And then the fourth component is building consensus. And so building consensus means that we are building up these certain modules, and what we want to have is a strong support for the whole system. But if there is now singular systems and they fall on the same strategy, and I have a big problem with the things that are faulty, we don't want this system now to fail because some of the things are bad. So if we have a modular system, we can say we are building consensus for the different components of the system, and some of the modules enjoy great support and some of the modules not so much. So then we can improve those specific modules until also they enjoy great support, right? And so we can build consensus for the whole system and lift up the whole system without stopping the system if some of the modules are faulty. And so this is what can give us confidence, not only in the overall system, but also in the process of arriving at the system. So it's two types of confidence. It's confidence in the system, and it's confidence in the way we build the system. Does it make sense? Chat, give me a little bit of feedback of how you're following along. So, yeah, representation of bottom-up, we had that. Yeah. I'm going to drink a little bit of water while you give me some feedback here in chat, and then we go into a few of the aspects. Disassembling the strategy maybe a little bit, but I think we got most of it covered right now, so we can go into a little bit of a discussion. Yeah, so hope you're saying I'm missing messaging. You can clarify a little bit. Do you mean messaging about how we build the system, or do you mean messaging like how the ecosystem messages and does like marketing and advertises itself? So what I would generally say is we are not discussing how is the ecosystem communicating with the outside world, but if you think about we are building a government and how does the government communicate, I would say there is sort of the internal communication of how we're talking about OpenGov, and there's great formats like AAG, which is basically a little bit of a parliament. I don't know if it wants to be a parliament, but to some extent it is a parliament. And then it comes to basically, if you have teams building stuff like this, like building structures, they are individually communicating. So if you have people, let's come to the top-down perspective of the whole thing. I think it's important to understand there is teams building from the bottom up, and the top-down perspective has a specific role in the whole thing. Yeah, I will get to that. Hope. Good. So, strategic. I think the important thing to understand is if we fight everything out by individual votes, on a case-by-case basis, it creates attrition because we get tired. We don't want to have the same discussion every month. It creates uncertainty because it means things can change all the time, individual decisions can change all the time. It doesn't have a holistic system, and it wastes a lot of time if we discuss the same things again and again and again every month. It would be enough if we discuss it every year. Okay, maybe initially we needed to discuss everything every month because we learn a lot, we get a lot of discussions influence, so we might change our opinions a lot. But over time, as the system matures, you want to slow down discussions. Maybe you want to renegotiate it every 3 months, or every 6 months, or every year. So the more the overall system learns, the slower the pace of discussion becomes, because major overhauls of the system happen slower and slower as we learn things, or maybe as major developments happen. Yeah. So the big question that you can have is that there can be different ideologies about how you manage the treasury, right? So what we cannot have is to say we now pick this winner and now this winner is making the decisions. I mean, of course you can do that, but what we want to do is to pick as smart as possibly, to consider as many aspects as possible and then pick the best ones. Or maybe, maybe treasury conservatives, they have, for example, what you can value about treasury conservatives is that they say we need to have good plans. Good plans are good things. What you can value about treasury accelerationists, so people that want to spend as much as possible to basically accelerate Polkadot, is that they have a very strong pull to success or a push to success. They want to get to success fast, right? So we want to have good plans and we want to get to success fast. So if we can, and this only gets possible, you can only develop this perspective if you start to deconstruct the different ideologies and look at what is good about them and what is bad about them. And if you do that, you suddenly arrive at values and you arrive at objectives. For example, values can be, we want to be effective, we want to be efficient, we want to have confidence, we want to have accountable systems, transparent systems, resilient systems, flexible systems, simple systems, right? These are values. And we can discuss about values, and this is where you can have the good fights because you get to the bottom of the issue. And then you can develop objectives, like we want to have good developer experience, user experience, marketing, business development. We want to have more liquidity in this ecosystem. We want more apps being developed. If we talk about those things, suddenly we can become very specific about the things we want to achieve. And maybe, if I start these discussions with people about what should Polkadot focus on, some people say developer experience and some people say user experience. And now the funny thing that then happens, that people say developer experience is more important. No, user experience is more important. I don't know, who knows? I have my opinions. I think developer experience is actually the most important thing right now. but I could be wrong. Maybe user experience or marketing or business development is the most important thing. You know, Giotto thinks marketing is the most important thing. But it's not an exclusive, or we don't need to say it has to be this one thing and it's only this one thing. The great thing is that we have many people working in the ecosystem and they can work on different things. And we can agree that these 5 objectives are the objectives that are most important to us. And so the discussion becomes more about what makes it into the list and what doesn't make it into the list. And then maybe how much money do we push on this and how much money do we push on that. But we can get away from these discussions of it needs to be this one singular thing. Yeah, I don't know, Hope. Some people are just having this discussion of what is most important, and that's, yeah. So, yeah, getting into this, how does a top-down perspective come into this? The thing about consensus, the great thing about consensus is that it can change. So stakeholders can change, people are selling the bags, other people are buying the bags, so the whole composition of the system can change. So objectives can also change over time. What is important right now might not be important in a year and 3 years from now. So what we should do when we say these things are important is what objectives are good for is that they give us an overview of what is most important for us. And this is basically a top-down perspective where you say marketing is important. The moment you say marketing is important is you're setting up a top-down hierarchy of things where you say this is at the top, right? So everyone who has an opinion about what should happen with the ecosystem is having a top-down perspective at that moment. That does not mean you're a bad person or like a top-down dictator or whatever. It just means you are taking sometimes the bottom-up perspective of what can I do and how can I help and how can I contribute. And sometimes you take a top-down perspective of I think this would be the best thing overall, right? So you can have both things at the same time. You can think about top-down and you can think about and act bottom-up. What top-down contributes in this sense is it acts as a coordination mechanism because it allows us to look at the important objectives and then say, okay, how can these things work together? Or within the domain of developer experience, what are the crucial components that we should have, right? So this acts as a coordination mechanism. And now if we take these things together, from the bottom up we get the implementation and from the top down we get the coordination. I've been talking a lot. I need a little bit of water, and the interesting thing is we got also a little bit of feedback on that point. So this is what sparked the most discussion yesterday when I was presenting it at AG. Yeah. So Jay had a very important pointed opinion at this point of the discussion, which was the thing that can create revolutionary success, that can create skin in the game, that can make things better is competition. And I agree with that. Competition, you see competition everywhere in life. We're basically, humans are the most dominant species on the planet, and we can be very proud of that, but basically what it means is we won competition against all the other animals. People are competing for jobs, people are competing for, I don't know, games, whatever. So competition is everywhere. Now the question is, how can you create competition? Because what would be bad is if you have a top-down system and then if the component is bad, it doesn't get replaced because maybe you just reform it all the time, but maybe that is not the best choice. Sometimes reform is good, sometimes exchanging it for something different is better. And one thing you can have is you can have two different things compete for the same thing. So one example how you can do this is by making requests for proposals. For example, you say, we want the Polkadot flagship event to be hosted, and you can submit your request for proposals. And then different event hosting organizations can say, we want to do this and we want to do that. They compete, and then you can select the best offer. And you might be happy or you might be unhappy with the result. And in the next year you can select a different provider for a flagship event, right? So request for proposals is one of these ideas of how you can create competition, where you can say, we have this objective, we want this thing to be done. Now who wants to do it and what is your offer, right? And this brings us to this this idea of how bounties were originally imagined in Polkadot, which is a bounty is a thing where you say, we want this done, and we are, I don't know, attaching $10,000 to it, or $100,000, or $1 million, right? So this is a way how you could have a bounty. Or you make the proposals and we are going to select based on the proposal, which might even be a better idea, because then you're not attaching the price tag to it, but you actually let the proposals select their own price tags, and then you can compare it. But I mean, it has to be in a little bit of a range. If you have a flagship event proposal for $10,000 and for $1 million, you could also select both, right? In a way. Right. So there is this comment in chat, you need KPIs, right? So how does this fit together? Typically, the way you look at this is that you have objectives and key results. So important phrase here to learn is OKRs, which means objectives and key results. So this is a popular approach. I'm not telling you this is the best. I'm not a management expert, but this is typically how I try to conceptualize stuff. So OKRs is objectives and key results, which means, I don't know, one objective in Polkadot could be, we want to improve developer experience. And then you ask, okay, how do you improve developer experience? And this is where key results come in. And key results can mean, we want to overhaul the tutorial section on the website so that it includes more of the examples that people have been waiting for. And we want to develop an AI that helps you develop substrate palettes. And we want to have, I don't know, a video series or whatever. I'm not the developer experience expert. So you have these key results, right? And then the way you measure the success is that on the key results, you might be attaching KPIs. For example, if you have tutorials, you can measure what is the completion rate on the tutorials. And if the completion rate on tutorials raises from 30% to 60%, you see that the tutorials are more engaging and people like them more. So one way, and the way how I think about this is, if you want to have, and I'm like, please ask other people how they think about this, they might have much more experience, is my understanding is KPIs are sort of below key results. Objectives are the big things, then key results is how you can basically measure how you reach an objective, and then KPIs sort of allows you to add quantitative measures to the whole thing. Good. Okay, so this was a lot of theory, and now I want to transition into what I actually want to do in the next time. And this is also where I'm inviting you to participate. And I'm not yet clear in my mind and how we can get this operational done in terms of the effort and all the other work that I have to do, but this is something that we need to figure out together, and where I'm really glad that we're a decentralized system. So sort of this is now the point where it becomes interactive. So how do I see this? Okay, new word here that we didn't talk about yet, which is coalition. I think this is sort of an ideology or a concept or something. This is a way of thinking about how can we do things, right? And I'm making this video to basically transmit this idea to you so that you can make it your own, and you can say, I like this idea and I would like to be part of that, or you can completely use it for your own, whatever. So I think what we need to do to change the way of how OpenGov is done is we need to build a coalition. We need to build a coalition of people that say, I agree with based budgeting, I agree with based OpenGov, and we should do things in a based way. And we need a coalition, and we need a coalition that agrees on a plan. Basically, what are the objectives that we need to get done? So for example, this is my proposal. When I talk about these things, this is my proposal. These are the objectives that I see as important. So let me put this down here. When I talk about the coalition agreement, I basically talk about these are the things that we want to achieve, and we focus our effort on this. And it doesn't even say that nothing else should be done and OpenGov should only focus on this. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is These are the things we should focus on, and everyone who thinks that this coalition is a good idea can also focus on these things. So basically come up with a coalition agreement or a rough outline of what we want to do. We need to assemble teams, which means get people that are already working in the ecosystem or that are interested in becoming active in the ecosystem on board to get some of that stuff done, right? This could be as bounty curators, this could be as executors, this could be existing teams that are already working and saying, I would like to coordinate, we would like to join a structure that helps us coordinate our work better, right? So this is what I mean, like this is about the professional execution. And then recruit voters, so effective, efficient, confident. If we can come up with a plan that helps us to allow to be effective, so reach for the right goals, if we can assemble teams where we understand that they will help us be efficient in actually reaching those goals, this can create the confidence that we can then go to voters and Wales and say, hey, you've not been participating in OpenGov and you might have your reasons, but the way that OpenGov is being done right now is creating so much uncertainty in the market that it's becoming a real problem for us. We have developed this plan of how we can do things better. Would you consider supporting us? That's the idea, recruiting voters. And I'm open about this. I think to a large part the plan hinges on us being able to convince voters that this is a good idea. Of course you can do things with 10 million votes, 20 million votes, 30 million votes. It would be much better, and I think it would also send a strong signal to the market to have 100 million votes or 300 million votes. It's not like the market is watching and saying how many million votes is a proposal in OpenGov getting. But just imagine if there would be a proposal that passes with 300 million votes. How much confidence would it give to the people that are actually working hard to implement this? It would signal to them that there is people believing in them and trusting in them and believing in this plan and trusting in this plan. And I think what we need right now is to have this confidence, because then we can go out and we can say stakeholders are trusting this and this is the new way of how we do things. We work by objectives now. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, let me read up. Oh, a lot of chat has been happening. Okay, let me stop here and read a little bit in the chat. Okay, where is evaluation? So basically, what is the measure of success, right? You're asking what is the measure of success. Okay, the measure of success is multiple things. First of all, if you give objectives, if you have key results, if you have KPIs, you can measure the success of that. The effectiveness is judged by the stakeholders and by the voters. So they give a job to a certain unit, and then they say you're doing a job or not, right? So this is, let's say, the last level of defense is basically the highest decision maker. If you have a modular system, maybe basically entities can also control each other. And then what I think is important to have an a controlling auditing unit that sits outside of this structure and that is controlling it and that is auditing it. This is something that we don't have right now in OpenGov, and no matter if you like this plan or not, I think an auditing unit is something that we need no matter what. So I think auditing on the finances is important. I think we should set up rules for bounties to give out monthly reports on their progress, written, short form, overview, with links to details, and there should be quarterly budget reports. So there needs to be detail in how you can review something, and there needs to be overview. Like clarity and detail are opposite ends, and what we need is clarity right now. We need these monthly reports that then allow you to dig deep and look at the details. So it's a combination of several things that allows us to control if unions are successful, and that create the professionalism. Good. Then we had a question. Yeah. So Hope is restating this point of basically saying the competition. So the way that things are working right now, a lot of times is Hunger Games, where there is where it's like it's either this thing or that thing, and then people are fighting. And yeah, you can have this. You can always like have this fight on each individual basis. But imagine how much time we could save if we could just set certain things where you say we agree that this should be done. And we don't, for example, marketing bounty refill has been a fight, I believe, monthly in OpenGov for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 months. I think the marketing bounty started in February or something, and it has been requesting a refill like monthly or something. Sometimes 2 times a month, sometimes maybe every 2nd or 3rd month. And this is a fight every time. This is insane. Fighting the same thing out every month is insane. Requesting a budget every month is insane. This is costing us so much stress and nerves and whatever. So imagine how much time we could save if we would come to a much smarter agreement about how we do marketing. If we say it's not only advertising, because the marketing boundary right now is not marketing, it's advertising, which is a function under marketing. You also have other functions like PR, content production, distribution. I'm forgetting some things like strategy. I'm forgetting some things, but you know what I mean, like owned media, social media and so on. So you have different functions under marketing, and advertising is only one of those functions. So buying calls and saying you do marketing is like, I don't know, eating pizza every day and saying you're having a diet in a way, or you're taking care about your body. But taking care about your body is not only eating pizza, it's also eating other things, and it's also exercising, and it's also, I don't know, have walks or whatever, right? So I lost track of where I am. Yeah, okay, next question. Coalitions basically sounds like political parties, aren't they? Yes, I'm taking this word from politics. A lot of what OpenGov does, governance, is doing political. I know that people are unhappy about that, what I consider to be effect, but it is like this. Also, what like companies are internal, like is doing like company politics. So politics politics refers to something where there is a struggle of power. And if you can vote for your tokens and someone else can vote for the tokens and you can vote for different things and they might be competing, it is a struggle for power, so it is politics. I know there's a lot of negative conceptions about politics. Personally, I've been involved in politics in the past, and I strongly believe there's good politics, there's bad politics. Politics is politics. This is why it's stressing us out so much, because politics is politics. The only thing we can do is make better politics. And to do better politics, we need to be educated about how we can do better politics. Because if we're not educated about it, we get into all these little Twitter fights and we're losing all our energy debating with people on Twitter all the day. And this is the worst time waster you can have. It's much better if you do something constructive every day. And so this is also like giving us a guideline on how we can do something productive every day. Yeah. Good. Okay, I think I covered all the questions. If I missed a question, just restate it and I will try to get into it. Okay, so let's get to the plan. If we can develop a plan together, so this is the next phase, is basically maybe writing something like a manifesto, writing something like a plan. I have some stuff that I have prepared so we can start working with this. I also can refer you to stuff that other people are working on, and I'm gonna push this out on Twitter in the coming days. Yeah, but we need to come up with something that we can propose, something that we basically, coalition. We are forming a coalition in the sense of we are getting people together that agree that something doing in a certain way is a good thing. So it's coalition in the sense of we get a bunch of people together that want to get the same stuff done. And in this sense, it's a coalition. It's not a single political party, because we might have different political opinions, where some people say we need to spend more, and some people say we need to spend less. We can still have those disagreements. But we could have agreements on the things that we think should get done, no matter how fast or slow we are spending. And this is why it's a coalition and not a single political party. It transcends your individual ideology. And I know this is a hard thing to do, because we might be disagreeing on how fast or slow things are done or how they are done. But if we can at least agree on the objectives, we are so much further than what is currently being done in OpenGov, because we can at least say OpenGov agrees that these things should be done. And then we can have smaller fights on the individual issues if we still care. But we know that the general direction is the same, and we can signal to the market about the general agreements that we can have. And this is so much more worth, because we can defer some of the fighting into a later point in time, and then maybe we don't have a reason to fight in the future, because maybe the stuff is already done. We have the voters, we have the teams. We can get a coalition wish for change done, and my hope is to really have 100 million votes on this, or 300 million votes. I'm not sure if I'm dreaming, if this is possible or not, but I want to put this number in my head. 300 million votes or 500 million votes, like a big number of votes that really signals that we can have something that we can get done with strength. And once this coalition agreement is done and we have these objectives agreed, next point is to go into departments. And so basically now, I don't know, this is where we still have to flesh it out, but the idea is we have different groups, working groups, teams, units, modules, departments, however you want to call it. And now they have a job, they have their objectives, and from this they say, okay, we need to get these projects done to achieve the overall goal, key results. And once we have implemented these projects, we are done. Okay, now we know our projects. Agenda. Okay, now let's look at the individual projects and see how much money we need to get this done and what other resources we need to get this done. Budgets. Okay, so we have departments, they work out projects. From the projects, we have the budgets. And now you can add up all those numbers and you have one big budget. And it's a budget that makes sense. It's derived from our objectives. You put in the work to actually get to numbers, and not say, 30% of whatever the treasury has should go into marketing, or I don't know, whatever it takes goes into marketing. But instead you say, we want to achieve these goals and we think this is the money that is needed, right? And there can be debate and there can be negotiation, whatever, but we come to a budget that makes sense and where we have agreement on. And then from there, for example, we might establish bounties or any kind of other project. And this is a vote, this is an on-chain decision. So what if it fails? It fails only on this specific issue. And so we have an iteration and we progressively build consensus on the specific issues. Right. Okay, we finished on an hour and I'm basically at the end of my presentation. Thank you for bearing with me. This was nice back and forth with you here in chat. Really lovely. So let me summarize this a little bit. There is good and bad stuff in OpenGov. Corruption and unprofessionalism is a big issue. It weakens our system, it creates uncertainty for the market. We need a paradigm shift towards strength, and we can achieve this if we create a system that is effective, that is efficient, and that is confident. I didn't finish the slide. How can we create a system that is effective with objectives? How can we make it efficient? By assembling professional teams. This sounds easy now, I know this will be hard. And how can we create confidence? By attracting voters that support this. These are the things that are necessary. All of these things need to play together. Okay, how do we continue? This thing that I just described, you can also read it. So you can go here into this, and can I share this with chat? Yes, I can share this with chat. You see it in the chat right now. You can read it in your own time. You can take some time. Please let me know if you read it. I see you in chat right now, but I will forget about this. Please let me know that you read it, how you would like to participate. At some point, not right now. First of all, we have to come up with a good concept. We're going to reach out to those influential voters, and what we can do already is reach out to teams and like sort out if they like what their thoughts are on this concept. Right now, my job, it feels like my job right now is to find 10 people that agree with this concept, because if you find 10 people that agree with this concept and would like to contribute, I think that this concept has a chance. If all of you say this is a nice idea and then we never talk about it again, we have lost this. But I believe we can do this. I think one thing that we can get around right now is writing a manifesto, because it focuses on objectives, which I think is this important thing right now, and prepare to bring this to a signaling vote on a visual change track. So comment on the forum, let me know what you think about this. Think about the goals and objectives that you think Polkadot should aim for and reach out. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining the conversation. I look forward to all of us seeing brighter times for Polkadot. I think it's time for good vibes now. I think it's time for good vibes. We all complain a lot. I complained, you complained on Twitter and in the forums and everywhere. And of course we can continue complaining, but I think now for us is the time for the turnaround. As you're hoping for a turnaround in the charts, it starts with a turnaround in sentiment. And so you are the people creating the sentiment. So this is why I'm hoping you like the concept, you internalize it, you start talking with other people about it, and you're starting to spread the good word and to spread good vibes and give people the hope and confidence that we can turn things around and turn things into a good way and start building this together. Yeah, that's it. I wish all of you a very great weekend. Feel free to share this link around with other people. I'm not sure, at some point I might make a shorter version of this, but I feel like this is an interesting debate and conversation. So yeah, maybe we just send around this video if you liked it, or send around the forum link. And I'm also going to make a Twitter thread, and we're in this conversation together. I guess the most important thing right now is to make sure you follow on Twitter at AllisonBob, and yeah, from there we carry on. So thank you all for joining. I wish you a great week. Goodbye.